Okay, sports media and relationship. So there's really two things that you really need to take away. This relationship is very strong for commercial sports at this time, but other sports are uncovered by the media, which again isn't going to be real shocking. In general, based business is based, but it also exists for promoting lifestyle based on consumption and ideologies that support such lifestyles. Go to the next slide. So other aspects of sports media and relationships. So there's going to be a couple slides here. So, corporations selling alcohol, tobacco, and food with questionable health values use sports to promote their products. And now you think to yourself, you're like, well, you don't see cigarettes commercials and, chewing tobacco at sporting events. No, but you see pop commercials and you see Doritos and Taco Bell and things that really aren't good for you, that really are unhealthy, and you're seeing alcohol quite a bit. These corporations cannot sponsor televised events. They are signatures on people, equipment, and essentially if they can't sponsor the event, they will put it on something so that you can still see it, which I'm sure we've all seen at some point or another. Actually, I went to a showcase a couple weeks ago in Colorado, and there was a team from the Arizona area, and they were sponsored by Corona. So I was watching a U16 girls team with Corona on their jerseys, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, you're going to have an alcoholic beverage sponsor your team. Your young girls who aren't even 21, it just seemed like it was a little contradictive, but that was their sponsor. Go to the next slide. So continuing on here, decision-making power in large media, rests in male executives, which we've already touched on quite a bit. The value and experiences of men are deeply embedded in the culture of these companies. When sports emphasize competition, domination, and achievement, many male executives feel these are critical factors in their company. So, they feel like they kind of represent the same thing. Like, I have this company and we want to dominate, we want to be the best, and we're going to, make sure that we're sponsoring sports that do the exact same thing. Go on to the next slide. So, here is, some of the things, images, narratives, and media sports coverages of athletes with disabilities. So, number one, it's very little, obviously, but when they are covered, it is patronizing, it is tragedy, it's inspirational, there's almost like a pity feel, surprise. The irony is as these athletes disrupt and challenge these stereotypes about disabilities, the media coverage creates others such as heroic or the courageous victim. So, the media kind of always spins these stories, to kind of put a different light on it than what's necessarily occurring. Go ahead, the next time. So that was the first theme. The next kind of theme that we're going to talk about is, images and narratives. What message are these commercials, these things trying to send to you? So number one, success. So when you're writing your paper, you're going to try to, discuss, maybe you saw commercials about success. So emphasizes on winners, losers, final scores, emphasizes on big plays, hits, sacrificing yourself for the team, consumption. Okay, so when you're watching your event, you're going to see things like this game is brought to you by, this halftime report is brought to you by, this pregame show is brought to you by, so, Pepsi, there's all sorts of sponsors. So, gender, that's going to be one of the other themes that you're going to see throughout. Masculinity rules, so there's research behind this. Men are, coverage privileges men over women 6-1. 6-1. Heterosexuality is assumed. So when you watch commercials, it's just assumed that we're going to have a male and female married couple. That's just how it works. We don't assume anybody's gay. We assume that they're heterosexual, and we don't even touch the other topic. Coverage, reproduces dominant ideas about manhood, but may challenge this idea about femininity, meaning that, they will kind of put out there that this is what manhood should be like, and you don't want to be too feminine. Media organizations are gendered, they're male dominated, male identified, male centered. Everything that you have already heard. So it'll be interesting though to, depending on what sporting event you watch, to see how much this is an actual theme and how much it plays a factor. Go ahead to the next slide. So you're also going to be looking for, like I said, race, ethnicity, and nationality. So this has been much better even in my time of teaching this course over the last 6 years. But however, there's still some major issues. Coverage today pretends that race and ethnicity don't exist. Nationality is often a focus in international events. And there's a lot of stereotypes that will be, made throughout these commercials. But they are overall doing much better. Go ahead to the next slide. So it continues with the race and ethnicity. Like I said, there'll be subtle stereotypes, and I list them there. I don't need to read them all for you, but media organizations have few directors, editors, camera people who represent different backgrounds. Hence why we get a certain picture when we get commercials. Go on to the next slide. Violence and conflict are frequently given priority in media, and even disrupts action in games and matches. So they give a hockey example here. Where they stop the game and they let them fight it out, which is, I'm not a huge hockey person, just meaning I, haven't watched the game a lot. But this is, one of the big highlights of when you watch hockey. Go to the next slide. Outdoor events are becoming really huge as well. So, this is something that's really cool. If you can't get to the game, they put out big screen TVs and people are able to watch and partake in this activity as in a group setting still, but maybe not at that spot. Go on to the next slide. So, experiences and consequences of consuming sports media. The research is really rare. There's not a lot out there. Identities are connected with experiences of watching sports, and those identities can be linked with various relationships and groups, coupled with, cohabitation. Often watch sports to couples that, cohabitate, watch sports together. And I can speak for that. My husband and I feel like ESPN is on all the time, and we kind of accommodate each other's viewing habits both ways. So it's just something that happens. Continuing on with that, active participation in sports. There's a positive link for those who already have a strong commitment to participation in sports. Attendance at sporting events, media consumption of sports is positively linked with attendance at elite events. But may decrease attendance at least elite events. Research is needed. Betting on sports, the internet, it makes it very easy for you to bet on sports and participate in that. Obviously, if you are an NCAA athlete, that is illegal. You cannot do that. Go ahead to the next slide. So professional sports journalism. So sports journalists they're not all the same. Essentially you have the ones that are going to present the news. You're going to have ones that are going to bring entertainment. There's going to be ones that bring like opinion pieces. So they're all a little bit different. The work of sports journalists does matter when it comes to culture, ideology, and public awareness. What are they presenting? Tensions between players and sports writer has intensified just because the sports writers are really putting something out there and the athletes don't always agree or like or want to hear about it. Ethical issues have become increasingly important in sports journalism because the stakes are so high for everybody that's involved, which is listed there: teams, athletes, coaches, and owners. Go to the next slide. So media differences in traditional media coverage of sports. The newspaper coverages emphasizes on the information, the previews, summaries, provides written representation of the events. Success depends on credibility, so you have to present the correct news. Highlights facts and dominant ideologies. May criticize sports personality and organization. Radio and television coverage is different. It emphasizes entertainment, often play-by-play images, provides real-time representation of the event. Success depends on the hype and visual action. Highlight heroic plays and dominant ideologies. Usually supports sports personalities and sports organization. So that's the end of our slideshow. Make sure as you're watching these commercials, you start to try to find some of those themes which we talked about: success, consumption, gender, race ideology, any of those things that those kind of stereotypes, and really, figure out what are you viewing from time to time when you're watching these sporting events. What are you getting exposed to?